I'd always known that you could give if to a family member or a friend, and I always thought that I would, should anyone ever ask me or need one. But then I saw a program on it on TV that you could be an altruistic donor, which is an anonymous donor, and that made me look into it a bit more on the internet. I did actually struggle to find any more information about who to contact, and I found something that just said you needed to contact your local transplant unit. So I went through the communications department at UHCW in Coventry.
And what's that process like, Chris? And when you phone, hello, I've got a kidney here you might quite like. I mean, how does that work?
I actually emailed them to start with, and their communications department passed it on to their renal transplant coordinator. She then contacted me, asked me a few questions, and asked me if I wanted to go in for an informal chat. And that's when I really got to know more detail about the whole process, how detailed it was.
You know, you're saying I'd like to do that, but you're thinking of an outcome. You're not actually fully aware at that stage what the process is like, and we'll talk about this in a second. But I mean, you didn't really have any idea of.
I had no idea of all the testing and things like that I have to go through in order to eventually donate.
How easy was it for them from that initial contact for the hospital to say, well, for you to being in surgery? How easy was that process?
The process itself was very easy, but it did take a long time. I think I started the process in November 2011, and I eventually donated in September 2012. I was actually ready to donate as of July, but then there was the matching process to go through. The process was very simple. As I said, there are a lot of tests that you had to go through. There's a large number of visits to the hospital.
A lot of your time, isn't it? I mean, at any point through all of that, did you think, what have I signed up for here?
Only because I was wondering how work were going to react, because all of the appointments are during the day. But luckily I work for another NHS trust, and they were very supportive, so they just said to me, whatever appointments you need to attend, you can do.
Because I was going to ask you whether your employers got the whole thing. I mean, even though that you're working within a health service, people will struggle with it, won't they? I mean, let's be honest. And did they get it?
I'm not sure anyone really gets it,
right?
To be honest.
Even now?
Even now. I mean, everyone says it's a great thing to do, an amazing thing to do, but most people turn around to me and said, I wouldn't do it myself. So I'm not sure people really get it even now.
And do you understand that? Do you get them?
I completely understand that, because I would never suggest that someone do it. I think if someone wants to look at doing it, they need to make the decision on their own. I would never try to influence them or say it's a great thing to do. It has to be completely and 100% their choice.
Did it change your life, and was it very intrusive into your own life as well?
It wasn't intrusive into my personal life at all. The number of blood tests that you have to go through to be a kidney donor can be seen as quite intrusive. I did feel a bit like I was a bit of a...
Like a pincushion.
Pincushion, yes,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
A bit of a pincushion by the end of it, and I expected my arms to look like maybe I was a drug user or something, but luckily it didn't. I was having probably 4 to 7 test tubes taken at least sort of once a month.
And did you have to do anything in terms of lifestyle? I mean, did you have to stop drinking, for example, or nothing changed in terms of diet or anything like that?
Nothing changed. Nothing had to change in terms of diet or drinking. Although I did change my diet because I wanted to be as healthy as possible before I went in for the operation. I had previously been running, but I sort of stepped up a lot more. I started the process in November 2011, and I didn't actually tell my friends and family until April, May time in 2012, because at that point I wasn't sure if I could actually be a donor, because there's lots of things that can rule you out along the way, and I didn't want them to put them through it and have to deal with the reaction before I knew that I could actually do it.
And so by the time they knew, Chris, how far away from the operation were you?
My original operation was scheduled for July, so I told my friends and family probably 2 months prior to the first operation being scheduled, which was about 1 month before they started the matching process.
And what was that like? In a couple of months' time, I'm going to go in and I'm going to have a perfectly healthy kidney removed, and the reason I'm doing it is because I'm going to give it to a complete stranger. What was your family reaction?
My partner was dead set against it the whole time, and only really came round in the last couple of months when he realised that he wasn't going to be able to stop me from doing it. Otherwise, my family were quite supportive, apart from one sister who's very much a worrier. So she's been dead against it from start and still's against it now.
Even though it's done and it's finished.
Yeah, she came to see me in the hospital and everything like that. She's been supportive in that way, but she probably cried for 4 days straight while I was in hospital.
You can understand people's emotion, particularly family, and people not wanting you to do it as well. Take me through the day itself. How long is the surgery for something like this?
The operation took place on a Friday morning, and they admitted me the day before on the Thursday lunchtime. And that was so they could do some final tests and also start me on some drugs that would sort of keep me calm, because although I was very willing to do the operation, I was a little bit worried about it at the same time.
You're not a fan of surgery, which is probably a good thing. That's a natural reaction,
definitely.
Isn't it, really? Yeah.
I went down for surgery at, I think it was about 7:15. I was put to sleep by about 7:30, 7:45. They try and get you through as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And then I think the surgery took about 3 hours.
And do you know anything about where your kidney is now?
All I know is that it was a female around my age, and that's all I know.
And safe in the knowledge that, I mean, when you think of people on dialysis, I mean, what you've done is life-changing for her. Is that often with you? Do you kind of think, wow?
Every now and again I'll remember, because I understand that she was on daily dialysis at the time, and it does make me feel good, but then for about 10-15 seconds and it sort of disappears again.
And what about you? Well, I mean, you're looking amazingly well. You're looking, no ill effects. I presume you've got a huge scar, have you, or not?
I have 3 keyhole scars on the front of my stomach, and then the scar from where they took it out, which is just below my waistline along the front. They are quite pink at the moment, but they will fade over time, but otherwise no effects at all.
And your health now, are you back running as well, or is that a bit soon? I
have done some running, but I'm put off more by the weather in the winter time, to be honest, than anything else.
It's got nothing to do with health, it's just too cold out there.
Yeah, so but I am back exercising again.
You were saying earlier that you wouldn't coerce anybody into doing what you've done, and again, fully understand that. But would you encourage people to say, well, look, if you think this might be an idea, make the first step and investigate?
I would encourage people to read more about it, definitely, in case it is something they want to do, because it was only when I learnt more and more about it that I became more and more determined that it was something I wanted to do. But I think I made my decision before I actually went to my first meeting that it was something I wanted to do. The whole way through the process, the hospital makes sure that it is something you want to do. You have to go through a psychology evaluation and everything. But with me, I think I made my decision so early on that there was nothing that was going to change my mind.